Hello, friends and fellow lovers of all things beachy. Welcome to The Beach Speaks, the podcast that shares stories about the beach and our connection to it. I'm your host and beach lover, Paige Friend, helping you reconnect with the beach, return to your soul, and reimagine your life. So grab a cool drink, relax in your beach chair, stick your toes in the sand, and enjoy this episode of The Beach Speaks. Hey, beach lover. My guest today is Jim Kupczyk, founder of Mindful Market and Sahu Sacred Oils. Jim was a guest on the show way back, episode 2 to be exact. I can't believe that was almost 6 years ago. Back then, the focus of the podcast was to promote mindfulness and conscious community with the connection to the beach, of course. The Beach Speaks was just a small drop in the vast ocean of podcasts, bobbing up and down with the waves, riding the current. Then in 2020, I started feeling like I was fighting the current, like I was forcing the podcast to be something that it wasn't meant to be. The beach said to me, take the podcast and ride the current. See where it takes you. It was calling me to tell more stories about the beach and our connection to it. Like all my guests, Jim has a soul connection to the beach, to the ocean. And like me, he felt a similar call to get back into the flow, to use his business, Mindful Market, as a stepping off point to creating a new venture. And when he approached me with the idea of a collaboration, a way of capturing the scent of the beach and the sacred energy of ancient Egypt, I was like, yeah, let's do this. Here's Jim to tell us how we did it. Hey, Jim. Welcome to the podcast. It's been a while.
It sure has. It's great to be here, Paige. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. For the person who is listening right now, they might not know, since it was quite a few years ago, you were my second guest on The Beach Speaks. And we were talking about Mindful Market and conscious business and all that good stuff. And I know that you're still involved in that, but I wanted to bring you on today to talk about your latest venture, Sahu Oils, and what you and I have collaborated on. And of course, we want to talk about the beach and all things beachy. So the first thing I want to ask you is what I ask all my guests. How is the beach speaking to you today?
How does the beach speak to me today? It's kind of funny. I did give that some thought prior to the podcast. And, as a Cancer, I'm ruled by the moon, which governs the tides and all of that fun stuff. So I think inherently I've got just some beach mojo happening in my life almost every day. And I love everything about the water. I think subconsciously it's always kind of speaking to me. I live pretty close to Lake Erie. It's about a 10-minute walk, and they say that the lake is pretty mystic from what I understand. So I think it definitely has some type of rule over me and influence on my day-to-day.
Yeah, anytime that you can be near water, whether it's a lake, a river, the ocean, a pond, It definitely has an effect on us. That's the concept of blue mind, which I've talked about on the podcast in the past. And I didn't realize that you were that close to the water. I mean,
yeah, the Lake Erie is literally a stone's throw, and there is the Niagara River as well that connects. But yeah, the lake is right there, and the river is right there, and I'm maybe about a 10-minute walk to the Peace Bridge, which connects Canada to. Buffalo's really right on. It's in a pretty good situation, actually.
Yeah, I remember visiting. Oh gosh, maybe it might have been a year ago when we took a trip to Niagara. That was the first time I had been there. And wow, you really have to experience it in person to really appreciate that phenomenon of water.
Yeah, for sure. And they say that Buffalo and the proximity to Niagara Falls makes it a pretty kind of spiritual place because of the power and the vortexes surrounding Niagara Falls area.
Yeah. Well, let's talk beach first here. Tell me a story about maybe a beach that is special to you, or an experience, or maybe you have a couple of stories to tell.
Even before I started, I don't like necessarily study astrology or know too much about the Cancer sign per se, but I do remember booking my first vacation. Man, it must have been about 20 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to go to Rio de Janeiro, talk about a beach right in Brazil there. And it was amazing. We stayed at the hotel, me and a friend of mine. It was my first major vacation, travel type fun vacation that centered around pretty much the beach. We stayed at the Copacabana, which is pretty well known. I think is that a Barry Manilow's song, the Copacabana.
Right.
And it was so cool. Literally, it was the first time in my life that I would wake up and, I'm not saying there wasn't much to do, but I would walk the beach, at 7 o'clock in the morning, literally for probably 5 to 7 miles, just the coastline in Brazil. And that beach was gorgeous. And just remember the sand and the sun and the water. And that was a time that I sort of took time to myself to just kind of chill and throttle back a little bit. And it was all centered around the beach. And what a special beach that was. That was an amazing experience. And that's pretty much how I caught the travel bug after that first experience. And since then, I've been to the beaches of Thailand and Vietnam, and always want to just, life is pretty busy. Just walk a beach. Just walk the beach and do nothing but just walk it.
Yeah, I have done that many a time when I've just stepped out and walked and walked and walked. And then you kind of look up and think, I've been going for a while and I need to turn back. So it's not difficult to do 5 or 6 miles. Tell me, what was the water like there? How was the sand and all that? And then tell me more about what it was like in Thailand and stuff, because those are completely different countries and parts of the world.
Yeah, I remember the sand being a little more coarse and the water not being, not knowing what to expect at all. I didn't know Tropicana, I didn't know if it would be crazy blue water like you see in certain areas of the world. I remember the water being nice, the water being warm, the sand being kind of coarse a little bit on my feet, but it was just like I was in awe of the water and the beach. So it was my first experience. And comparing that to Thailand, I remember, there's Bangkok and Thailand. We spent some time there, but then we went to, what is that island? Koh Samui, I think that's the name of it, which is, a tourist location. You had to get to it by a plane. And it was just what you see in the books in terms of the blue water and the white sand. And again, it was just really magical. But there is definitely a difference in the sand and the water. And at the time when I'm there, I'm not really thinking too much about the sand and the water. It's just holistically the experience and the energy of it all. But it was both. They're both special and they're both just amazing, to me at least.
Yeah, no, I was talking to a friend about the East Coast, West Coast here in the States, and the difference between the beaches there. And what is so specific about each one that we love. We love them for a variety of reasons. And it's not that we think about it. It's just kind of how our bodies and our minds respond to whatever's going on, right? I mean, on the West Coast, I think of the waves and I think of the power of the ocean and the nature, because there are so many beaches that aren't touristy, so to speak, like we have here in Florida. Naturally, our beaches are, I don't want to say heavily populated, but a lot of people visit the beach here.
I was researching like the Bay of Water for Thailand, because I know that's one of the differences between the beaches. You're in the Gulf of Thailand, so the beach and the water is a little more still. Maybe that makes it more blue and everything else. I was just kind of checking that out, doing a little research.
Yeah. So tell me what you're seeing there in your research. What is it saying? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's just I just wanted to see the body of water in Thailand. It is the Gulf of Thailand versus like the ocean, I believe. So that kind of makes the beach different. And when you asked me about the difference in the two beaches, and one thing I do remember too, one of the differences, we went, I think, in the height of tourist season in Brazil, and I was expecting a ton of people on the beach. And there weren't too many people, I think just because it's a way of life for a lot of the locals, which made it pretty special, too, that we kind of had the whole beach to ourselves. And it wasn't like 9 million people walking all over the beach, So it felt pretty cool. You almost like felt like a local.
Yeah. That feeling of being remote and just the peace and serenity. Not that you can't feel that with people around, but yeah, it's just a different vibe when you can be there and feel like it's just you and the elements and nature and all that wonderful stuff. So that leads me to think about the parts of the beach that bring us those feelings of calm and peace and vitality, the sand, the negative ions, all that. I did an episode talking about that. When you talk about the energy of the beach, especially, what is it that your body responds to, or your psyche, or what effect does it have on you?
I'm a very visual person generally, but what's kind of odd is it seems like what sticks out most anytime I go visit a friend at his beach house, or go to any of these beaches around the world, which I haven't been to too many of them. I am gravitated to the water, but I think it's, for me, it's even more so the sounds of the waves just crashing, and you're closing your eyes if you're in your beach chair, and just that sound of the water just pounding in the waves. That to me almost like invokes a sense of meditation.
And I know that meditation is a big part of your life. I kind of feel the same way. And typically when I go to the beach, I first need to lie down and listen to the water and fall asleep. But I get it with the sound. There's that repetition and the push and pull of the tides and all of that. People like to listen to that when they go to sleep. The sound, it has a marvelous effect on us. I wanted to come up with something that people could use to experience the beach when they can't be at the beach. And since you have a company that creates wonderful, what do I want to call it? Not concoctions, but
Elixirs.
Elixirs. That's the word I needed to find, with different essential oils, which are so natural and energetic. And we came up with, you actually came up with a beach spray that evokes all of the senses. What was your thought in putting that together?
Yeah, that was one of the best collaborations to date. I mean, Sahu Oils was started on 8/8. It's only been about 4 or 5 months old, and it happened pretty much by happenstance. And I think actually even the water and the beaches along the Nile kind of come into play with my Cancer sign. The beaches and the shores of the Nile are really sacred, and they used to do a lot of rituals and stuff like that alongside. So I think the beach and the water comes into play with Sahu Oils too. But, honestly, it was kind of self-serving, because living in Buffalo, and, sometimes the skies are gray and there's snow on the ground. I just had that idea when we were talking one day. Why don't we just come up with something that can remind us of the beach? And learning more about aromatherapy and how different oils and different smells affect the limbic system of the brain. And in some cases, the only thing that can affect and alter and change and balance certain aspects of your nervous system and your body are smells. So it was pretty self-serving. I'm like, man, I'd love to smell like the vacation or a beach or something tropical. And that was pretty much what kind of spawned the collaboration. It was a perfect collaboration. And then we both worked together and went back and forth with a lot of the different oils that comprise this beach spray, the Beach Speaks. And it was really kind of cool. And the challenge of making it not smell like suntan lotion, but make it smell like the ocean was really like a cool challenge of the brininess of it and the earthiness of it. And honestly, it's, I spray it every single day. There's just something magical about the Beach Speaks mist. It's just, it's really special. The challenge of trying to find some of these oils and getting them from Egypt and asking them, doing a little research about what oils smell earthy and just being kind of surprised that this family, seventh generation, related to Cleopatra, that use a 1,400-pound granite wheel and an ox to cold press these oils, that they would have some of these obscure earthy, briny kind of oils was, I think, maybe just serendipity, really. But yeah, it was kind of self-serving, but I'm like, I think you'd go for it. Why not? Why wouldn't you have a scent to go along with your podcast that people can purchase and just really just connect and almost be like an anchor for your podcast too, an extension of the podcast. Yeah, it was so fun collaborating on that project.
I agree. I remember the first iteration that you had sent me. I mean, it was wonderful. And Ernie had said something about it needs like salt. He's like, that's the one element that's missing is kind of that salty smell. And we were trying to think, well, what smells like salt? Because if you go and grab some salt out of your cupboard, even Himalayan salt, it doesn't really smell like anything. So I was thinking, what reminds me of the salt and the air and all that? It's typically that briny smell, like seaweed and fish. And I was thinking, we don't really want it to smell like dead fish. So, I mean, that's not quite the salty smell we wanted, but I think you really got it with this. And we had originally thought of calling it a room spray because there are a number of other collaborations you have done, and they call their spray a room spray. However, we did get some feedback from some people that it's not really a room spray. It's not something like Febreze or anything like that, where your whole room is going to smell like the beach for an hour or what have you. I decided that we would rename it Coastal Essence Mist, which I think better depicts what it is, because we both agreed it wasn't a fragrance room spray.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about these collaborations, I get to do research about products and, a lot of R&D. So I actually purchased a competitor's room spray, like a smudge spray, not a beach spray per se, just to see how long the smell lasted in the area. And in room sprays in general, they need something to stick to, and they literally don't stick around too long. So, I mean, that's why people use diffusers, because it pumps out a continuous mist of spray continually for as long as that diffuser is on. So that was a key learning after we received some feedback from some of the folks that bought it, that maybe weren't educated too much in room sprays, which I wasn't either. So I think Coastal Essence Mist is beautiful. It captures what the spray is all about. It is a mist. And I think I remember mentioning to you that these oils are so sacred that the different oils that comprise this mist, even if you can't smell them, they're affecting you in a positive way just through, just the energetic footprint of each oil and the intention that goes into the spray really has another effect on, I think, your psyche and your nervous system. I think it's just a really powerful, I don't want to call it a healing mist, but it just adds that extra dimension of good into the spray.
Yeah, that's helpful because you said it better than I could say it. Okay, well, talking about the oils and that they're sacred, tell me more about Sahu, how it started and everything, because from what I know, what you've told me so far, it is really nothing like any other essential oil that you can get. Tell me more about that.
Sure. I had a past life in international supply chain for a big food company based in Buffalo. And as part of that job, I would get sent to Dubai. I handled Middle Eastern supply chain governance, for lack of a better, kind of way of explaining it. And in 2022, after my visit to Dubai, I ended up booking a week trip to Egypt. And it seems like it was serendipity because the food show that I would attend for work ended the day before this gentleman, Matthias De Stefano, who has a gift of remembering past lifetimes, really a special gentleman. He had this congregation of about 2,000 people. The timing was perfect. And a good friend of mine asked me to buy her lavender. And to make a long story short, even though I've done energy work, for a long time, I wasn't really too proficient in buying and procuring essential oils. And I ended up buying her a fragrance instead of a quote unquote essential oil. So I kept in touch with my tour guide for the week, who's now a dear friend, who had a relationship with this family, seventh generation, 275 years old on record, related to Cleopatra, that produced these sacred oils the old school way. So I was able to get a sample, share them with my aromatherapy friends, and decided that I would do a little bit of a side hustle importing these oils because they're so special, so pure. They're all cold pressed too, and I can speak a little bit about that and how the essential oil is different from these sacred oils. But these oils are all cold pressed, like I mentioned, using a 1,400-pound granite wheel and an oxen. And even the family of oxen are 275 years old. Same family. It's the Apis bull. So their intention is to heal. They pick all the plants, on the 75 acres that they have for the oils that they make. Everything's by hand. And I've developed a pretty close relationship with the family. Hope to visit them before the end of the year. And when I asked them two questions, I said, what do you think about when you're making these oils? The first thing they said was, our intention is to bring out the true essence of the plant and the vibration of the plant. That really resonated with me with some of the energy work that I've done. The patriarch is considered the medicine man of Egypt, and they use these oils for healing. And back in the day, they didn't have the term essential oil. They call them sacred healing essences. And I've got to kind of be careful with the FDA in calling anything healing. So I just call them Sahu sacred oils or Sahu sacred essences. So it's a different category. I think they are just a pure essence of a plant, and I think that they're really a form of alchemy.
Mm. Yeah, they are. You sent me some little samples of different oils. And I mean, in just the smallest little sample, the essence just, Blue Lotus, that I had never experienced before. And I don't know if anybody who's listening has heard about it either, but tell me a little bit about that. It's not in my beach spray, but what is it and why is it so magnificent?
Yeah, I'm learning so much. It's so exciting. I've never been a history major, but for some reason, I've had energy readers now subsequently in the last few years say they think that I might have spent some time as a high priest in another lifetime. And there's just something about ancient Egypt that kind of fascinates me. So I watched a bunch of YouTubes when I first started getting involved with this project. And the Blue Lotus was really revered, and it's in a bunch of hieroglyphs in Luxor, in like the temples of Luxor, the blue lotus, and how it might have, they do studies on how it might be like kind of a psychoactive compound. The blue lotus doesn't grow alongside the Nile like it once did, but I think at one time the blue lotus was really a special. I don't know if Cleopatra herself invented it per se, but I think she made it popular because I think she used it almost as a form of perfume. So the first blue lotus was not like it was meant almost to be like a perfume. So it's very rare. Since the Egyptians are so suppressed, the government doesn't tell them how special the blue lotus oil is. So there's not too much demand in Egypt for the blue lotus. And since it doesn't grow alongside the Nile anymore, the blue lotus itself isn't too plentiful. So to get your hands on blue lotus oil is not easy. From what I understand, they cultivate it in March and October, like 2 times a year at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, when it fully blossoms. So there's even the ritual about that. And if you Google and do some search on various websites for blue lotus, anything, you might find it. But if you look at the small print, there's a good chance it's from Thailand and Sri Lanka. So it's a different genre of the blue lotus. So it's just a really special oil. And I'll tell you, just as much scientist as I am kind of spiritual, and it seems like those that are kind of like conscious, the level of consciousness, like people that really eat super clean and meditate all the time and really are self-aware with their bodies, they're having some really pretty transcendental experiences with that blue lotus. I know I've a number of times, not every time that I use the blue lotus, but I might see some kind of, I don't even know what it is, almost like before bed, I'll put a drop of blue lotus on my third eye, just close my eye, and I see some kind of like light language. It's not hieroglyphs, it's some kind of light language, and it just kind of scrolls down, and it's wild, and I'll see it for 5 or 10 minutes and just say, okay, that's enough. So it's having some, it's super, it's hard to describe, but it's just, it's a really special oil that's been special for a long time, and I can see why. I think it really brings you back something. It does something where it brings you back to a feeling of that authentic self and who you are. Really hard to explain.
Yeah. I haven't tried that at night with a drop on my third eye, on my forehead, and it'd be interesting to see. I have pretty crazy dreams, so it might be interesting to see what my brain decides to do with that. Are you like the exclusive importer of this, or do you have some special agreement with them?
Yeah, when I first started importing these and distributing these, and thank goodness that my job, for 30 years, my old life was supply chain related. I knew all the questions to ask, and importing from a third world country is not easy to begin with. There's a lot of nuances. So I just kind of threw it out there, could I be the exclusive importer in the United States for these oils? And this 7th generation family, they're not on Google Maps. They don't have a website. They're doing it for the right reason. And of course, after working with me for a little while, they had trust in me and in my intentions to really spread these oils to light workers and people and create a ripple effect that hopefully is all about increasing global consciousness. So they did allow me to sign an agreement to be the only company in the United States to supply these. And then I guess I kind of swung for the fences. After a few more months, I said, hey, do you mind? Can I be the only person outside of Egypt to distribute these oils? And they agreed that once I hit a certain threshold of imports, like once I imported a certain quantity, that I could be. So it's a huge honor to be the sole global distributor for these oils. And I think it's part of my soul path of being a shepherd for these oils and actually to protect the family too, because I have had some energy readers do a deep dive into the company and just give me a bit of direction in terms of, where these oils can go. And they're like, my friend Leanne basically said, you're a steward of the oils, but you also are here to protect the family because these oils are special. The alchemical nature and the wisdom on that wheel is pretty special. And one thing that I'm not sure if you know, Paige, I think you might know, and it's not really too pronounced on the website, is these oils spend time, like my friend or his brother will go from Giza to Luxor to pick the oils up, go back to Giza, and then they climb, or they have a friend of theirs climb the Great Pyramid of Giza, and they spend time in the sarcophagus picking up kind of like cosmic wisdom that kind of dropped in a dream, or I don't know where that came from. So just the energy of these oils are pretty special, and I'm grateful to be, the exclusive global distributor for these oils.
Yeah, that is amazing. And that just brings me back to my Beach Speaks spray, because those sacred oils are in my spray. I call it mine because it's mine for the podcast, and it's mine to share with all of you. I'm looking at the label, and it does say Egyptian orange, neroli, vanilla, coconut, do you say bergamot or bergamot?
I think it's bergamot.
Bergamot, eucalyptus, juniper berry, vetiver, rosemary. Those are mostly oils that we are familiar with. However, I think when you smell them, you'll be thinking, I've never really smelled this before.
So special. I'm spraying it right now. Just so I can't get enough of it. Honestly, it's just, I think it just worked out. It was one of those things where we went back and forth. When Ernie provided the feedback, we're like, yeah, let's make it, how can we make it a little more earthy? And instead of just quitting and saying, yeah, this is really cool, this is great, we just took it that one step further. And just like, I love personally just that little tint of coconut. So, I mean, that's just that tropical, makes me smile. But then it has just a lot of depth in terms of, like, you would think rosemary, like rosemary and eucalyptus, but you don't really smell the eucalyptus. But I think it takes some of the edge off of the orange, the vanilla, and possibly the coconut, and makes it more earthy. There's just something about it that a combination of the bergamot and the eucalyptus and the rosemary kind of tone it down a little bit and make it smell that earthy, I think. It's just, it's such a wonderful, I mean, I think it just, I don't want to say we got lucky. I think it was faith, but we were persistent. We didn't rush it to launch this. I think your passion for the beach and your intention, I think, come into play too with these. I think you're part of the energy equation for these oils for sure, because anytime that I collaborate with anybody, I love working with people that are super passionate and heart-centered, and that comes through the final product.
Yeah. And you and I have been collaborating on many a project over a number of years. So that just seemed natural that this would come about. And if you connect the dots, going back to your previous job and all that you had learned, and then coming to this spiritual awakening of sorts to a new experience, and then being able to bring that back. And then those of us who get to experience it here, I'm going kind of off on some existential tangent here, but these are just thoughts that are coming to my mind right now. I love stories. And I think anybody can look back and connect the dots on experiences that they're having now, and how everything that's happened in their life, good or bad, has kind of set you up for where you are now, or how you can move forward. I think of my coming to the beach. How did I get here? And all the steps that it took, and the people that came into my orbit just when they needed to be there. There's just something really special about all of that. And I guess what I'm trying to finally kind of bring it back around is that connection with the beach, connecting our stories and then being able to share it with people who really resonate with the beach. I don't know. It's just right now I'm just feeling like this is just more than, oh, we just created this aromatherapy spray.
You mentioned, the beach into the spray. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of like full circle, and it was really, my path in terms of where I've been in my job, and then launching Mindful Market, which you're involved in, and then actually using Mindful Market to launch the oils. And it was a perfect case study of, if you've got a new business, and you can put your product or your service on Mindful Market just to give it a test shot. It's so efficient and economical. I'm just grateful to be on path myself and recognize that the universe has my back, and we're using the oils to fund Mindful Market and hopefully keep that going. So that was pretty special when you really give it some thought. But I think your love of the beach and your soul makes this oil just all that more special. I mean, it just really shines through the oil to give it that extra dimension. I just wanted to kind of say that.
Oh, I'm glad. And I think that is probably a good place to end it. Honestly, we could go on about Mindful Market and all of that. And I would love to revisit that maybe at another time where we can shed some light on what's going on with that, because that is what we were talking about. I don't know, 2019.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And we're moving along. But I really do appreciate you hopping on and talking to me a little bit about Sahu and your connection with the people in Egypt, the oils, the elixirs, and My Beach Speaks Coastal Essence Mist.
Love it.
Yeah, I do too. Well, have a fabulous day. We will be talking soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Paige, for having me. It's been a great time, and I hope your listeners really have a chance to experience the Beach Speaks. I know we've launched it. When did we launch it? Was it a couple months ago?
It was in end of January. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just hope that your listeners get a chance to experience this spray, because it is just super special. And it was a great project, and appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak about it.
Thank you. The beach is speaking. Are you listening? Is the beach calling you to stop fighting the current and return to the flow? You don't have to go on a pilgrimage to Egypt like Jim did. Just join me here and we'll ride the tide together. And if you need to, you can borrow my floaties. I love sharing the beach with you. And now with the Beach Speaks Coastal Essence Mist, I have something especially beachy to share with you. And it's a unique way you can support me. When you use my link to purchase Beach Speaks or any other Sahu blends, the commission I receive goes right back to the production of this podcast. The beach is speaking. Thanks for listening. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Beach Speaks. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the beachy vibes and share it with a friend. Because, let's be honest, who doesn't want more beach in their lives? And if more beach is what you crave, go to thebeachspeaks.com and sign up for my newsletter. It's an easy way to stay in the know, collect some tips and travel hacks for your next beach adventure, and find out what I'm doing at the beach. And if you want to dive deeper into the ocean of support, consider becoming a Beach Speaks Patreon member. Your contribution helps keep the podcast afloat, and you'll enjoy some cool perks that only our Patreon family gets to enjoy. The beach is speaking. Are you listening?